Hey guys, welcome to the video on finding slope from a graph. So you know how to graph lines using a table. Now we're going to use something called slope. So slope is a ratio, which means you can write it as a fraction. It's the change in the y values divided by the change in the x values. And another way to think of it, some people call it rise over run. Because when you're rising, going up and down, that's a change in the y. And when you run side to side, that's a change in the x. Okay? And the letter we use to talk about slope is the letter M. Slope tells us how to move points on a graph. Okay, so here's our first example. What is the slope of this line? Okay, so slope tells you how did you move from one point to the other. Now when you write your answer, it has to be as a fraction. The top number tells you the change in y, or the rise. Okay, so, and you guys can pick which way you want to go. Let's say I'm going from this point to this point. If you want, just always go left to right. That might help. So to get from this point to this point, we're going down 2. So the rise is actually -2. And the run and change in x is right 2. So that would be +2. And then if you guys want to simplify your answer, -2 divided by 2 is just -1. Okay, so the top number tells you up or down. And the bottom number tells you left or right. Rise over run. Okay, so this brings us into the types of slopes. A positive slope will be an increasing line from left to right. A negative slope will be a decreasing line from left to right. An undefined slope will be a vertical line straight up and down. And a slope of 0 means it's just straight across. Okay, so those are the types of lines. Or types of slopes, I should say. Okay, let's practice a little more. We're finding the slopes. So how do you move from one point to the other? I'm going to start by making a fraction. The top number tells you how much you rise. We're going up 2, so it's +2. The bottom number tells you how much you run. We're running 1, 2, 3, 4 to the right, so it's positive. And then you always want to simplify your answer. 2/4 reduces to 1/2. Okay, number 2. How do we get from this point to this point? Well, I'm going to make our fraction. We're rising, we're going up. 1, 2, 3, 4. So up is +4. And then we're running right 2, so +2. And then again, you always want to simplify. 4 divided by 2 is 2. All right, number 3, same thing. We want to know how are we moving from one point to the other? And it's going to be a fraction, rise over run. Now this one we're going down 2. And down is going to be -2. And then we're going right, 1, 2, 3, 4. And right is +4. So when we reduce this one, 2 over 4 is 1/2, but don't forget it's negative. So notice if it's increasing, it's positive. If it's increasing, it's positive. If it's decreasing, it's negative. So make sure you don't forget the negative sign. Okay, moving on to units. And then we're done. Since slope is a ratio, the units will always describe a ratio. And when you write the units, it's always written as a ratio. So like a common one would be like miles per hour or like dollars per minute. It's always going to be a ratio of units. And when you want to find what the units are, just look at the X and Y axes. They'll tell you what the units are. Okay, so let's try a couple. So first of all, let's just find the slope. So how do we move from this point to this point? Okay, so I'm going to make my fraction. We're going up 1, 2, 3, so positive 3. And then we're going right 1, so positive 1. Okay, and then I'm just going to call that 3. And now the units are going to be the ratio y to x. So meters per hour. So I'm just going to write m/HR, meters per hour. If you'd rather write it like a fraction, that's fine. Okay, number 5. How do we get from this point to this point? Rise over run. Well, we're going down 2, so that's negative 2. And then we're going right 1, that's positive 1. Okay, so I'm going to call that negative 2. And the units are centimeters squared per second. So centimeters squared per second. And you can abbreviate. That's fine. All right, number 6. How do we move from this point to this point? We are rising, going up 1, 2, 3, so positive 3, and then right 1, which is positive 1. So 3 over 1 is just 3, and the units are gallons per minute. So gallons per minute. And then lastly, number 7, how do we move from this point to this point? We're going down 2, so negative 2, and then we're going right 1, so positive 1. And then negative 2 over 1 is just negative 2. Units are yards per millisecond. So yards per millisecond. Again, you can abbreviate as you wish. Okay, guys, nice job. That is slope.